Until 11, Mitchell's Front Page on 94.7 The Pulse.
Now, James Aspey is the man that's been silent for 365 days as part of Voiceless 365. James, good morning.
Hi, how you going?
And you have been silent for 365 days?
Up until yesterday, yeah.
So you didn't get the temptation to talk?
Yeah, I had the temptation to talk every single time someone wanted to have a conversation.
But your website says that you're quite a talkative person normally, so it's been especially difficult for you.
Well, I think it would be pretty difficult for most people, like whether you're a bit more talkative than, the average or not. It's just the duration, like the length, a year of holding it in. You get the desire to talk still right up to the end.
And how did you communicate? Did you pass notes or use sign language or what?
For the first couple of months, I just wrote everything down, which was such a punish. And then I realised people were actually pretty good lip readers for the most part.
Yes.
So I kind of mouthed with my, you know what I mean? I'd be overly expressive with my mouth to try to be very clear with what I was saying, and I'd use a lot of body language.
So I guess the listeners at home might now be at this point asking why.
Yeah, well, definitely, I bet they are. The reason I went voiceless for 365 days was to raise awareness for the voiceless, for the animals. We all say we're animal lovers, we all are against animal cruelty, but many of us don't make the connection that every time we're paying for animal products like meat, cheese, milk and eggs or leather or any of them, we're contributing to horrific mutilations and torture and killing of all these animals that, we usually say we love. And so I wanted to kind of draw attention to that. And, animals are voiceless, and I thought I'll go voiceless. But I actually kind of had a realization somewhere along the line that they're not really voiceless. And, they use their voice when they cry and when they scream. And the problem is just that we don't pay attention to that. And, they're a different species, so we think, well, they're different than us, so their suffering doesn't matter like our suffering matters. We wouldn't do to them what we do to our own species. And so that's why I took the vow, and also to raise awareness to the way I live my life. Because I'm a vegan, and that means I don't participate in any of the cruelty or the exploitation or the killing. And I just wanted to show people how easy that is and how healthy it is, and just break some of the common misconceptions about it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask if you were a vegan, but based on what you're saying, I assumed so. But what are the common misconceptions about veganism?
Well, I had them all before as well. Like, I've only been vegan for not even 2 years now, but, there's just so many, mate. Like, there's this, probably the biggest one I'd say is that it's extreme. Like they see, vegetarian, okay, we can handle that. But vegan, cut it all out? Like, whoa, man. And it's just so the opposite of extreme. Like, it's actually not being a vegan that's extreme. We're killing these animals, doing all these things to them, and we don't need to at all. There's just no necessity for it. So the biggest one I'd say is that, there's this extreme vibe around veganism, and it's actually just such a peaceful, easy and compassionate way to live your life. There's nothing extreme about it. And then there's the protein myth. We need protein. We need animal protein. You can't be healthy without animal products. And the reality is that on average, you'll probably live a longer life. You'll probably live a healthier life if you're a healthy vegan, which is easy to do. And you never have to worry about protein. It's almost impossible not to get enough protein. So there are a couple of things like you have to consider once you change the way you eat and things like that, but it's all easy and it's all healthy. There's no cholesterol, there's none of the saturated fats, and you're dropping a lot of the crap, basically. And then what else is there? That veganism is for like hippies and for, far out there kind of people. And mate, like, I'm just a normal guy. I know I just did this vow of silence, and that's kind of pretty out there, but I just did it because I'm passionate about the cause, and I thought it would be a good way to draw attention to it. So veganism for anyone who, wants to just leave all the cruelty and violence behind and just kind of go forward for a more peaceful life.
But you say that you've only been a vegan for 2 years. So I guess what was the catalyst? What did it for you? What made you change?
Yeah, good question. Well, it's funny because I've never cared much about animals. I've just been very indifferent to them. I just never really saw them for what they are. You know, now I see them as like they're their own society. They've got their own thing going on. Like we're people and they're like non-human people, just kind of doing their own thing. And I never saw that before. And I was working on a cruise ship in the gym, and I met this older kind of like real wise Indian man, and we talked for a couple of weeks. And at the end, on the last day, he told me, he sort of described that eating animals is like a bad karma. And I thought, you know what, like that actually makes sense to me. That's probably true. And I thought, well, I'll just go vegetarian for 7 days and see how I feel. And because I'd always believed that you could not be a healthy vegetarian. Like I was adamant about it because I heard that from someone I respected in the health industry years earlier. And I'm like, right, that's word. That's for sure. But I thought I'll just try it for 7 days. I felt amazing after a few days. And I was like, well, I need to look into this because, you know, health is my job and if this is good, I want to do it because I feel better already. I looked into it, I realized how healthy it was, and I was like, wow, I've never had any idea about this. Then during that research, I realized more about the cruelty and more about I saw footage of slaughterhouses and all this kind of stuff, and I thought, wow, I'd never really thought about this. This has never really come to my attention. I've never thought about it. It's just all behind closed doors. It's, you get this image of happy animals and, there's this big humane slaughter myth, which is a total joke. There's no way to humanely, kill someone, And so I thought, all right, well, now I've got 2 reasons that I don't want to eat meat, and that's all I was at the time, a vegetarian. And then when I started learning about dairy and about eggs, and dairy is probably the worst, mate. That they take the babies from the mothers at just a couple of days old. If they're males, they'll send them to the slaughterhouse to kill them straight away. And if they're female, then they'll grow them, and then they'll be the same as their mum, just a milk machine until they're so exhausted that they collapse and die, basically. And I thought, well, this really, I kind of need to go vegan here. I'm doing this. I thought I was vegetarian for ethical reasons more than health reasons, really. And I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense to be against some suffering and some cruelty, but not against others, or to be against cruelty to some animals, but not against the rest.
Yeah.
So I want to be consistent with this, so I'll just go vegan. And I looked into that. I made sure it was healthy. I realized it was incredibly healthy. And mate, I tell you, I thought I was making a sacrifice, and I gained so much in so many ways. And even I thought, all right, maybe I'll be making the biggest sacrifice I thought would be enjoyment of food. And since going vegan, I've just learned this whole new realm of what food is about, and how to cook different things. And my breakfast every morning it's like the texture of ice cream, but it's just 4 blended frozen bananas with a bit of peanut butter or tahini, which is sesame seed spread. So I'm eating kind of like ice cream every day for breakfast. It's super healthy, and I'm just loving it. I'm thinking, man, I never used to be able to enjoy my food this much before I was a vegan. So that was pretty much a catalyst, mate. Just when I really got into understanding what we're doing to these animals, just so we can enjoy the taste of meat, cheese, milk, and eggs, I just thought it's not worth it.
But you said that those first 7 days were quite easy for you and you felt better, whereas I imagine a lot of meat eaters out there now would be reluctant to take the first step. Was there anything difficult for you about making that transition?
It was so easy, man. That's what surprised me. I thought, this 7 days is going to be tough. I was worried. But I thought, I'll do it. I'll be able to do 7 days. And
yes.
We think that it's the meat, cheese, milk, and eggs that we love, because that's what we have with every meal for our whole life, pretty much. Well, that's what I was doing. I was eating it every day, every meal. And then I realized in that 7 days, it's not the meat, cheese, milk, and eggs necessarily we love. It's not that our food needs to have a piece of animal in it for us to enjoy it. It's that we just love eating food if it's good and prepared well and tastes good. It doesn't have anything to do with if it's animals or not. And so it wasn't hard. I did it and I never went back. And I was a massive meat eater, and I never went back. I thought I don't need to. I didn't. Occasionally, I'd crave a couple of my favourite meat dishes and that. But the more I learned, new recipes and new things to eat when I was out, and I didn't think I'd be able to go out as much. And I can go to any restaurant and just tell them, yeah, I'm a vegan, so what can we do? And they go, oh, we can do this, we can do that. Sometimes they say, oh, we can make the whole menu vegan. I don't have to limit where I go or anything. And once I realised that, I thought, oh, well, I'm never going to need to crave anything because I'm still eating at least as good food. And so, it is daunting. You think, I'm not going to enjoy this. This is going to be a sacrifice, like I said. But as soon as you take that leap of faith into it, and you've got to get motivated. I think you've got to watch the documentaries and understand why this is important. A really good one's Earthlings.com. It's a free documentary. It shows all about what happens to the animals before they get on your plate, and that's pretty motivating. Then there's Forks Over Knives that tells you all about the health benefits. There's an amazing speech by Gary Yourofsky called Best Speech Ever, and that's on YouTube, and that is just
I think that's on your website, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, voiceless365.com.
But I was just going to say, anecdotally, you would think that there'd be more vegetarians out there than vegan. I don't know if the stats say that. So what would you say to vegetarians out there?
I'd say, look, vegetarian is you probably think you're doing right, and you're it's like you're on the right track. You're like a baby vegan kind of thing. You're thinking about it. You think, all right, something's wrong here. I don't want to hurt these animals. And that's such a great start just to be thinking about it, at least. The thing with vegetarianism is that you're not necessarily causing less harm. A lot of vegetarians, and this is my experience with my own journey, I substituted the meat for extra cheese or extra eggs or, extra animal products. So I cut out one animal product but added more. And like I said, there's probably more suffering in a glass of milk than in a steak. So you may, if you think of it like that, you may even be causing more harm to animals. But the point is that it's not about cutting out meat or cutting out eggs. It's about being against the exploitation and the whole vibe of what we're doing to animals is just wrong. I think, mate. I think we need to just leave this behind. It's just one of those things that's been going on for such a long time, and it's kind of, like I said, behind closed doors. I think vegetarians need to just go, if you're doing it for ethical reasons, if you're not just a vegetarian because you don't like the taste of meat, if you're a vegetarian because you care about animals, don't just care about the animals that are being bred for meat.
And just last of all, I just wanted to ask, was it worth it? Did you achieve what you set out to achieve by not speaking for 365 days?
Mate, it all came to the peak yesterday. I spoke for the first time on Sunrise, the morning show, and I was able to, I really planned what I was going to say. I did a 10-day meditation course before that, where you meditate 11 hours a day for 10 days, and I really just went there to prepare for that interview so I could just put into words all of this succinctly. And I went on there, and it just came out exactly how I wanted it to, man. And, the whole year was great. I wrote a blog, and I showed a lot of people, my thoughts, and a lot of people were moved by that and made changes. But yesterday, I think, was pretty huge. To be able to talk about veganism on primetime television in Australia, I think that was a pretty big thing, man. And so even for that moment alone, the rest was epic as well. But even if it was just that moment alone, it was absolutely worth it.
Well, James, thank you so much for joining me this morning. We'll podcast this interview, but it's been fascinating to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for the interview, Mitchell.
My pleasure. James Aspey there from Voiceless 365, which was his plan to go for 365 days without speaking.